Hello again, everyone. I'm Richard Sher, and it's time once again. Take the magic gavel. Welcome you all to Square Off. Here are this week's great panelists: Jimmy Mathis, Darlene Kennedy, Professor Rick Vatz, and attorney Chris Kennedy. Are you Kennedys related in any way?
Yes, we're cousins from the county Cork.
Excellent. Very good to have you back, Darlene. Well, first, it was CBS's Stephen Colbert. Wednesday, it was ABC's Jimmy Kimmel, canceled indefinitely. This action taken after Kimmel made remarks about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here's what Kimmel said on the air that got him yanked. Quote, "We hit some lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang trying to characterize this kid who killed Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them." Kimmel also poked fun at President Trump's response to a question from a reporter about how he was mourning Kirk's death, after which Trump pivoted to a discussion of the construction of the new White House ballroom. Let's start with you, Chris Kennedy, and then we'll get into it. Go ahead.
So the thing that disappoints me the most here is what the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, did. This was an otherwise distinguished, up-and-coming FCC commissioner who actually supported free speech when he was on the commission with President Biden. But then, about 3 years ago, he was recruited to help write Project 2025, and that's where his transition, or some might say radicalization, occurred. And now he has broken the law by coercing this move by ABC. And it's very clear. The Supreme Court said just last year in the NRA Volo case, government officials cannot wield their regulatory power to punish or suppress disfavored speech or pressuring private companies or private individuals. And when he said, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way, but this Kimmel thing needs to be resolved, he crossed the line and should either resign or be fired.
Jimmy Mathis.
Everybody knows I'm a huge Trump fan. I'm not going to defend this. There is no part of this that I like. Chris, I agree with you 1,000%. I think the abuse of the First Amendment gets thrown out there a lot. Normally, it doesn't apply when you're tying into the private sector. I don't know if it technically crosses the threshold here, but it is incredibly close. This is such, and I hate the term slippery slope, but it really is. I was no Colbert fan. That was nowhere near as egregious to this. You now have the president coming out and saying that Jimmy Fallon and Myers are next. This is a very dangerous precedent. There's nothing about this that I like.
Darlene Kennedy.
It really concerns me. There's several issues in my mind, kind of going back to the assassination itself. Mental health issues. Secondly, we're dealing with the First Amendment right as well as the Second Amendment right. I certainly support the First Amendment as well as the Second Amendment, but we do have to draw a line. This is the United States of America. When do we start punishing people for saying what they believe, whether that's the right or the left? I'm just tired of people picking and choosing what sounds good, what they want to hear, what they're willing to accept, and what they won't.
Rick Vatz, I noticed that you were sitting there going, so that was probably disagreement with what Darlene was saying.
I just had an article in the Baltimore Sun about the use of mental illness to excuse all kinds of behavior. But in fact, the killing of Charlie Kirk, the news came after Nexstar, American publicly traded media company, which announced its intentions to preempt Jimmy Kimmel's show. Jimmy Kimmel had said things on his show that minimized his audience to a point where he was losing audience all the time. He told anybody who liked Trump not to watch his show. He falsely claimed that MAGA was the assassin. I am 100% in favor of Carr's actions on this, which, by the way, is not what got all the affiliates to want Kimmel off the air. What I don't agree with is extending it Trump gets a little confident and he says, well, now we ought to look at Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers. I don't like that. But the firing ultimately of Jimmy Kimmel is eminently sensible, and it did not come from Carr. Carr obviously didn't like him there, but he did not act to remove him.
But Rick, you kind of nailed it. You're talking about the Nexstar deal. I mean, the reality is for these huge conglomerates to get these purchases done, they need the blessing of the federal government. They need the blessing of the FCC. So if they don't submit to them, these massive deals don't get done. And it may be de facto, but this is what state-run media looks like. And look, here's the ironic thing. The person that would be the most vocal against everything going on right now would actually be Charlie Kirk.
Well, this is not, in fact, this is almost deja vu, Jimmy, just coming back to something you said earlier. The fact is, this is not the first time we've unfortunately, had the situation where a nighttime talk person, whether you agree with him or not, was fired on ABC. And that would be after 9/11. And his name escapes me at the moment, but politically incorrect. And he was, ABC, ended his contract after he made the comments about the folks on the terrorists on the airplane. Now, again, whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, as you said, and as Chris has said, we're dealing with private industry, we're dealing with government entities. Something you said earlier, Professor, I'm not excusing behavior because of mental illness at all, but I do think it has to be taken into consideration when we're allowing people to purchase firearms.
I do want to say one thing, if I may, and then we'll get back to you guys. Trump was thrilled, of course, with this decision, and he writing on his website X, Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. Locally, Sinclair Broadcast Group, the nation's largest owner of ABC affiliates, says it will not put Kimmel back on the air until ABC commits to what Sinclair calls higher standards of professionalism and accountability. Sinclair is also demanding that Kimmel issue a personal apology to Charlie Kirk's family and makes a meaningful donation, both the Kirk family and to Kirk's Turning Point USA, which he founded. Who was going to go next?
That's all fine.
Let's Jimmy, one sec.
Sure.
Go, Jimmy. Go, Rick Vatz.
This will not happen. They want him to humiliate himself, and he won't do it because he considers himself so important that he would not lower himself to do that. I think Jimmy Kimmel is really an embarrassment. He also doesn't care about his audience. He doesn't care about the affiliates. He doesn't care about how many people watch his show. And so I think he's a perfect person who should be released from his position. But that does not mean that you then, Mr. Trump, start going after others who irritate you, because that is an abuse of power, an abuse of presidential power.
Look, when you look at the official,
Richard, if I may, Richard.
Jimmy, let Chris get in, and then you.
Thank you. This is right out of Viktor Orban's playbook in Hungary with the soft autocracy. It involves just taking over all aspects of the government, in this case, the fourth estate, the fourth branch of government. Trump has the executive. He has essentially taken over the legislative branch, Congress, with Johnson and Thune being, lackeys of his. He has essentially taken over the Supreme Court by conning them into giving him immunity for almost everything, where 1/3 of the court is beholden to him for appointments. And then the final thing is the media and the press. And that's how this is what's going on right now. It's part of his toolbox to exert regulatory authority over the media and the press, judicial authority with the DOJ, financial pressure on the law firms representing the media and press companies, as well as representative pressure telling the advertisers who advertise on these networks and in those papers, you're going to be next if you keep feeding advertising money there. This is about an authoritarian takeover from Trump's perspective, and that is extremely scary stuff.
Well, this ties back not even just to this individual story, but with the whole regulatory part of this, to what Chris is talking about. Look, this existed during COVID. You had large media conglomerates where if you did not get the vaccine, they were going to fire you because that was in lockstep with what the Biden administration
Yeah.
wanted. And Rick, to your point, look, Colbert, the official excuse from CBS was the show was losing money. Look, it's a very competitive market. It's a fragmented market. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But keep in mind, CBS was in the middle of a merger when that happened. Right now, ABC, the exact same thing. And you have to look, if you want to get rid of Kimmel because the ratings are down and he's alienating his audience and whatever, the business model doesn't make sense anymore, fine. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. However, you have to admit, if it was not for the words from the FCC chairman, ABC would not have acted. And of course, the affiliates are going lockstep along with it. But this is because of the remarks from the chair of the FCC.
Let me say this. Do you all feel that the bottom line on this topic is that if it ticks Donald Trump off, you go poof?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's
Yes.
very scary. and
Yes,
it's
if the
true.
king is not happy with your performance, the jesters will be fired. And I mean, I'm making light of it in some ways, but it's a very serious situation. And again, we're supposed to be living in the United States of America, but we are modeling countries that don't allow free speech, don't allow news to be given to the public. I mean, he is controlling. This is all censorship. And how far is it going to go?
Look, and the media does operate at a different level. That's why it's protected under the First Amendment. Okay, they didn't make the First Amendment the 12th. There's a significance to broadcast media, which is why the federal government has their hands in it to begin with. The FCC. Okay, it serves a public interest. It ties into national security. So I'm sorry, this is really a road too far when you start messing with broadcast media.
And
Look,
Richard,
there
I'm
is,
sorry, Rick, go ahead, Rick.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
I think there is a danger of Carr and the FCC jawboning the owners of affiliates who act. Again, I think that the decision on Jimmy Kimmel, I don't know exactly which came first, whether it was Carr or the affiliates reacting to this, because I know that a lot of people immediately had a negative reaction to Jimmy Kimmel, and his statements on the air are just completely inappropriate. And again, I draw a distinction. I think we have a measurement now. Will Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers keep their jobs? If they do, then you see there may be a limit to this hint by Donald Trump that they should be removed as well, which I disagree with. And so
Rick.
we have some measure of whether he will have that kind of
Chris,
power.
you're up next.
Rick, did you finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if we look at the footprints in the sand about Donald Trump, following up on your question, Richard, there's proof in why we should all be scared. Before he became president, he was threatening legal action against the Des Moines Register because he didn't like poll results. And since he's become president, and here's the list: lawsuit against the New York Times because he didn't like the coverage, $16 billion lawsuit, Wall Street Journal lawsuit, ABC lawsuit with the $15 million settlement, CBS critique and lawsuit resulting in revamping 60 Minutes and having a conservative ombudsman there, and a settlement of $16 million, an ABC critique by the FCC that we've talked about, as well as Trump lambasting probably the nicest member of the White House press corps, Jonathan Karl, who asked a simple question, and Trump went after him about Pam Bondi coming after him individually. This is scary stuff, and this is not what the founding fathers were about. This is not what Madison meant when he wrote the Bill of Rights, those 10 amendments, okay?
I would suggest
Congress shall make
One
no
second,
law
Rick.
Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press.
All right, we're going to take a break. Come back. We've got a lot of things to talk about. Welcome to Square Off, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a break from the man himself. The voice of Square Off, please welcome Howard Mallison. Howard.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. You know, Baltimore is a great diner town, and the Double T Diners year after year are voted #1 in reader polls. TT stands for totally terrific. For breakfast, Lunch or dinner, you can't beat the enormous menu selections that will bring you back again and again. There's Double T locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, drive by the docks in Middle River for their Monday night lobster special. In fact, they have specials all week on prime rib and other things too. So check them out. It's all part of the Double T family. And tell them you heard about it on Square Off. And Dr. Kelly Gagan is a well-respected, board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. Foot problems can happen at any age, and Dr. Gagan knows that the appearance of your feet matter just as much as correcting any problem you may have. And if for some reason or another you're embarrassed to wear open-toed shoes or sandals, you may be a candidate for laser treatments that solve this issue. They're
Right.
safe, painless, and go right to the cause. And I can attest to it personally because I did it. I think Richard did it. And I know Dr. Vatz and his family are clients of Dr. Gagan. So you can believe me when I'm telling you this. And we're all in favor of Dr. Gagan for fixing your feet. So give her a call at 410-753-4422 to set up an appointment. Now back to you, Richard.
All right, Rick Vatz, can we see your feet, please?
I don't think you'd want to.
Well, thank goodness you're seeing Kelly Gagan.
Yeah.
All right. Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert Kennedy Jr. His family says the Kennedy family is calling on RFK Jr. to step aside, get out, resign. His sister Carrie Kennedy and his nephew Joseph P. Kennedy III, speaking for the family, issued statements calling for their relative to quit. You've seen some of the public discussions in the congressional committees. Do you think Secretary Kennedy is right for that job? Jimmy.
Look, I personally do. I'm kind of a one-issue constituent on this, for lack of a better word. I was very much against the mandates of the COVID vaccine. I'm not anti-vax. I was very much against the way the government forced it down their throats. I was very much against the way it shut down a global economy, the way you could get fired from your job if I thought it was all my body, my choice. So that very much bothered me. And for that single reason alone, I've kind of supported Kennedy.
Who else?
Richard?
Chris.
Sure. So, yeah, his sister Carrie and his nephew Joe III, who was a member of Congress, did issue some scathing comments that I think were well placed. And the thing that hit me the most is when Carrie Kennedy said, "My brother set fire to my father's memory." Okay, that just really just shoots you right in the chest when you hear something like that. But it is true. He's untrained in science, untrained in medicine. And if you want an example of him clearing the deck and bringing in loyalists and acolytes, just take a look at the committee that is in the news right now, the ACIP Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. The guy that he put in charge of that board, okay, Martin Koldorf, he was just thrown off the Harvard Medical School faculty last year for his crazy views on medicine, vaccine, and COVID treatment. He was one of those herd immunity people, okay, who quickly got drowned out because it's some sort of prehistoric way of treating vaccines versus the mRNA that, God love our scientists, came up with and had at the ready when COVID unleashed itself on the world.
Let me ask you, Chris.
I just think that he needs to step down or be fired.
Rick, let me ask you this, Rick, and then we'll get to Darlene. Do you feel that the health of America's children and adults, you feel they are at stake, their lives, because Bobby Kennedy, the Secretary Kennedy, is in office? Do you think he's going to be responsible for the deaths of some of these children and adults?
You asked me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me just say, this is the second topic we've had today that I have powerful ambivalence. The New York Times agrees with Bobby Kennedy, and I agree with Kennedy that ultra-processed foods, pesticides, food dyes are harmful. and Americans are facing epidemics of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. I think he's been very good on these. On the other hand, his claim that the mRNA vaccines offer no protection against respiratory viruses and can prolong pandemics, he appears to be without scientific support on that. And so now, so let me say I'm very ambivalent on him. He appears to be responsible in one area and irresponsible in another area. And one thing I must say, the internecine fighting among the Kennedys is just really contemptible. You don't call your brother incompetent, and you don't slam, you don't make it personal when it's intrafamilial. And so I don't like the way the Kennedys are attacking him, saying that he's defiling the legacy of John F. Kennedy and so on. You don't get into that. Just stick with the issues.
Should he quit? Should he resign? Darlene.
Yeah, I'm supportive of him resigning, and it goes back to science. I don't care who he's related to, who his parents were, his siblings are. The thing is, what does he bring to the table with a background? Not that he has to be a medical doctor or that he has to be a scientist per se, but he obviously and has, since he's been appointed to this position, kind of talked off the top of his head without substantiating any kind of proof to whatever he has to say. And I think that if you're going to have someone in that position, they have to be someone, whether you agree with it, whether you agree with them on the vaccines, they should at least be based in science. And that's my problem. I don't like this. Well, I feel, I believe. No, this is, we're in a place where we have medical modern science and we need to utilize it.
Richard, let me just give another example of him thumbing his nose at well-researched, academic, peer-reviewed science, okay? The hepatitis B vaccine is historically given to infants on the first day of life. And the reason is because any disease that the mother has can be passed through the umbilical cord to the fetus and infect them with the virus, of the Hep B virus. So Kennedy and his acolytes are against doing this, all right? And one of the issues that's being looked at this very day is whether that should be stopped or not. But this board seems to think that this is an unnecessary vaccine, when all it does is it prevents children from having a lifetime sentence of being treated and screened for Hep B and facing liver cancer. That is stunning to me that he would do something like that. They're thinking about limiting the vaccine only in cases where the mother has previously tested positive for Hep B, but there are so many mothers who don't have the test or are gotten a false negative, or the test results aren't even looked at. That is a classic example. And Senator Cassidy even brought this up at the end of the hearing, how it's essential to keep this vaccine in place. It is scary that this man is doing these kinds of things.
Can I follow?
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Darlene. Make it brief.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
Make it brief, please.
Oh, just really quickly, I was just going to say, look at what was happening with the mumps several months back. I mean, we hadn't had an outbreak of mumps in years and years, and because people are saying no, you shouldn't give these kids these vaccinations. It spread. So, I mean, we need to be logical about the decisions we're making when it comes to the health of this country and our children.
All right. We need to take another break because Howard's standing by. And then I'm going to ask you this question. Do you feel that the assassination of Charlie Kirk will lead to more political violence in this country? Think about that. We'll end the show with that topic. Here's Howard.
Thank you, Richard. You know, the law firm of Barry Glazer specializes in personal injury, medical malpractice, and nursing home neglect. His creative TV commercials have made him very recognizable because Barry tells it like it is. Check out his words of wisdom on Facebook. Barry and his team have an in-house doctor and nurse on staff, so call Barry before you call the insurance company. Barry gets you the compensation you deserve. He's that good. Give the law firm of Barry Glazer a call at 547-8568 and let them know you heard about them on Square Off. With so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, auto accidents are going to happen. And if you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models and offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Back to you, Rich.
All right, we're running a little short on time, so let's talk about the assassination.
No. Sorry. Sorry about that, Richard. That was
All
me.
right, so now that I've been ousted as the host, I'm going to talk to the FCC. No, you know about the assassination everyone does in the country. Charlie Kirk had hundreds of millions of mostly young people following his turning point USA. So, do you feel, Darlene, you could be first, Charlie Kirk's assassination will lead to more political violence in this country?
I would hope not, but I think we're in a very hostile situation in this country that everyone's on edge. I just wanted to quickly say, not only are people at the top being punished, the Indiana Attorney General fired a university employee based on her comments about this assassination. My point being, this is a country where we used to be able to express ourselves without being worried about being persecuted or executed for it. And until we get back to that place, I'm really concerned this is not the end, but the beginning, unfortunately.
Jimmy Mathis.
This country's in a really bad place right now. You would have to go back to the assassination of Martin Luther King for the last time there was an assassination of a non-elected, high-profile political figure. That's how far back you got to go. When Luigi Maggiano shot the healthcare CEO, I remember Seth Meyers was getting ready to do a joke on Weekend Update. He didn't even get to the setup. All he did was mention Luigi. The studio started applauding. There's a legal defense fund for him. I have people that I bump into in public that wish the bullet would have connected with Donald Trump, that it would have served a greater good. That's where we're at right now. So does the assassination that we just experienced, does that lead to immediate continuation of violence? But we are on a dangerous trajectory right now. And there are a lot of people that believe that, it serves the greater good. And we have not been there. I wasn't alive during the 60s, but you look at JFK, you look at Bobby, you look at Martin Luther King, that was kind of a norm at the time. And then we had a half a century of a pause, and we're getting back there, and people should be very alarmed where we're heading as a society.
This is from Variety magazine. Charlie Kirk's assassination has sparked a security surge across the news networks and podcasters. The climate feels more dangerous than ever.
Let me just say, I think that there is more danger now. I think there will be copycats. I also think that the people who have been irresponsible with their reactions, who are in positions of power and positions with children, teachers, professors, journalists, I don't have any concern for them being fired, because I think they should be fired if they act irresponsibly. The First Amendment does not protect you from being fired if you're acting irresponsibly in your job. And so I don't have any difficulty with that. But I think there will be more violence. There already has been more violence, short of killing people. And I think it's just appalling that people think that it's okay to celebrate the killing of somebody with whom you disagree.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. First off, violence is never allowable, especially in politics. And it's just heartbreaking to see that these two kids are going to grow up without their father. Charlie Kirk would, if he were alive, would be supporting Jimmy Kimmel right now. That I'm sure of.
He would.
If there were, security forces, he had a 6-man team with him that day, but it did no good, because the kid on the other side of that rifle had been holding rifles since he was in grade school. There's pictures of his mother handing him automatic rifles when he was like 10 years old. And one of the messages that he sent to his roommates said that the scope that he used to target Charlie Kirk, the scope cost $2,000. All right. So I'm afraid that there's more people like this with those kinds of high-powered rifles out there. But I think one way to limit the violence and hopefully not see this horrible stuff again is if everybody tones down the violence or tones down the rhetoric and stops saying inflammatory things. Charlie Kirk had a right to say what he said.
Yes.
A lot of it I disagree with. I think he was wrong when he said that MLK Jr. was an awful person. I think he was wrong when he said that Ketanji Brown is not qualified to be on the Supreme Court because she's black. I think it was wrong when he said that when I get on a plane and I see a black pilot, I wonder if he's been properly trained. I think he was wrong when he said that the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a mistake. And I finally think he was wrong when he said that black people had it better in the 1940s during the Jim Crow laws. I think he was wrong about all those things. But if you were, or others like him, were to stop saying things like that, okay, and appealing to the angry masses and making a lot of money in the progress, then those scopes and rifles might be put away for good.
Rick, what do you think?
My goodness, you cannot be serious. That's just ludicrous. You take a couple remarks and you make it out of context and you say this naturally motivates people and they may not be motivated if you stop doing this. That you've said a lot of smart things today, Chris. That isn't one of them.
And a lot of
Well,
those.
why don't you go read what the
a lot of
defendant
those
wrote?
were taken
Those were
very
his
much.
Hold on
exact
just a
words,
second.
Rick. That's
Hold
what
on.
he said,
Hold
the
on.
defendant, in his text
Stop.
messages.
Everybody stop. No personal attacks. Everything Chris says, he's entitled to say.
Who said he's not entitled to say it?
He's entitled to say it, Richard, but I'll give you an example. I just literally this morning watched the entire clip on the black airline pilots. I mean, that it's very much taken out of context when you rattle off one sentence out of a 10-minute speech.
Well, can I say one thing, Richard, before we end this? Long time ago, I had a professor say to me, at the time I was probably considering myself more of a conservative than I am now, but nevertheless, he looked at me and said, you know what? I don't agree with a word you had to say, but I tell you, you have the right to say it. And I think if we could just get back to that, just civility to say, look, I really don't think what you're saying makes any sense. I don't agree with it, but I'm not going to go kill you for it. And that's where we got to figure. And we have these young people out here now who are watching us. And unless we start to make some changes, I fear for the young people who are left to grow up in this society.
Rich,
Hey, John, we are. Jimmy, final word, Jim.
My mentor was the great Ron Smith, and he had a saying that I've always held on to, which was the only opinion you have to worry about defending is the one that you don't agree with. And I will leave it with that.
And we'll leave it at that also. I want to thank you, Darlene. I want to thank you, Chris, Rick Vatz, and Jimmy Mathis. Good to have you back. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Richard Sher. We're delighted that Square Off has now moved into its 42nd year in Baltimore, because as with Jimmy, I was also not alive in the 1960s. We will see you next time here at squareoff.net. If you've liked the show, if you haven't liked the show, it's your prerogative. But just join us again next week at 7:30 when once again we square off. Say goodbye. Goodbye.